Welcome to Rugby and District Astronomical Society's guide to using the plough to find your way to other celestial objects. Here we have a typical nighttime image, the plough shown as it normally is depicted, with the 7 stars forming the shape shown here. Of course, the plough rotates around Polaris, so it can be high or low towards or away from the horizon, upside down as shown from here, or with the tail pointing up or down as well. But once you get familiar with the night sky, you'll easily be able to pick out the plough whichever orientation it's in. The plough, of course, forms part of Ursa Major. It's actually an asterism, which is a shape formed by stars, which is not a constellation, and may not even be part of the same constellation. The most famous example of this is probably the Summer Triangle, formed by the stars Vega, Deneb and Altair, which lie in 3 separate constellations. The constellation of Ursa Major may also be depicted slightly differently, with a bit more of a bear's head like this, and there are other depictions available. So we're going to be starting off at the right hand side of the body of the plough itself, and using the most famous signpost of the pointers to find our way to Polaris. The easiest ones to remember are all alliterative. Here we have a P and a P for the pointers towards Polaris. And here we have an image of Polaris itself taken with a 9¼ inch scope. And you can clearly see that it's a double star. The brighter one does outshine its fainter companion, and it's quite difficult to split in smaller instruments. Polaris is important because it was used by navigators to find out how far north or south they were in the northern hemisphere. The reason being that Polaris lies around 630 light years, almost directly above our North Pole. It won't always be the pole star because the Earth's axis does have a bit of a wobble, and at the moment it's a happy coincidence that the pole is pointing more or less at a fairly bright star, so it's easy to find. In the southern hemisphere there isn't a southern pole star. So if we draw a line directly towards Polaris from the North Pole and have a look where our horizon would be, you can see Polaris is 90 degrees away from the horizon, which gives us the latitude of the North Pole of 90 degrees. If alternatively we were on the equator, the angle between the horizon and the pole star would be 0. Polaris would lie on the horizon. You wouldn't actually be able to see it in this circumstance because the extra thickness of the atmosphere that you're looking through. Remember, as you look towards the horizon, you're looking at an angle through the atmosphere, not straight up through it as you would if you were at the North Pole, or looking at a star at the zenith, which is directly over your head. So this would give us a latitude at the equator of 0 degrees. Anywhere in between, your latitude is found by looking at the angle of the North Star compared to the horizon. So looking at this angle here, from Rugby, this would be at around about 52 degrees, and that's 52 degrees north latitude. So Polaris tells you, and more importantly mariners, how far north or south they are. The longitude problem took a little bit longer to solve. So looking at the plough again, the second of the easy to remember guides is following the arc down towards Arcturus, the brightest star in the constellation Bootes, which is a sort of kite shape which is laying on its side when looked at in the early months of the spring up to April-May time, and is fairly visible from spring onwards. Now we use the rear legs of the Great Bear to go down towards Leo. So I've had the pointers towards Polaris, the arc towards Arcturus, and the final alliterative one is the leg towards Leo. And these do point towards the sickle, which forms the head of Leo. Well, and this is a well-known asterism again, and this is another example of one where it lies within the constellation completely. So here's the rest of the lion, and we'll have a look at the star Regulus here, and also in this area we have the Leo triplet of galaxies. Regulus is shown here with its faint companion off to the right. It's another double star, one that's quite easy to catch in a 4-inch telescope, as I did here. Harder to catch in a 4-inch telescope, and ideally a photographic subject, is the Leo triplet. This was taken with a 9¼ inch scope and a device called a focal reducer. It works a bit like a Barlow lens in reverse. Instead of zooming in, it turns the instrument into more of a wide angle. And we have the 3 galaxies here, M65, M66, both Messier objects that he found and catalogued, and the Edge-On galaxy NGC 3628. And they make a nice grouping of galaxies. Again, not easy to find in anything under 6 inches, and in 6-inch instruments they will just be the typical Messier faint fuzzy blob, rather than defined as they are here, which is a stack of 10 individual 30-second exposures. Back at the plough again, and easier galaxies to find and observe with small instruments or even binoculars. If you go across this diagonal here, heading from the lower of the leg stars through the upper of the pointer stars, and about 1 to 1.5 times the distance across the diagonal of the body of the plough, we come to Messier 81 and 82, a pair of galaxies. These can be caught quite easily in the same view in a 4-inch telescope. Higher magnifications, you'll need to move the scope to find both of them. You probably won't get them both in the same view. So we have M81 here off to the right, and M82 off to the left. They are different. M81 is a fairly face-on spiral, and M82 is edge-on. Here we have M81. You can see the nucleus and some of the outlying parts of the spiral galaxy. And here we have M82. This was taken with a 4-inch telescope with a DSLR attached, a single frame, and you can see that it's clearly edge-on, and it was thought to be an irregular galaxy until recently, when the spiral structure was actually discovered using instruments such as the Hubble Space Telescope and large telescopes to have a look at this galaxy. Back to the plough again, and going the opposite way along the diagonal, we come to Cor Caroli, a double star in Canes Vetonesi, the hunting dogs. And here we have it. This was taken again with a 4-inch telescope, but with a 2 times Barlow lens to make the splitting of the star easier to see. Cor Caroli is the last named star with an officially recognised name, named by Sir Edmund Halley, and I'd say he's allowed to name a star. Cor Caroli is the heart of Charles, and it's named after Charles II. Back again to the plough. We're going to use the top 2 stars here now to go along to the bright star Capella in the constellation of Auriga. And moving down on this diagonal, you don't quite get to the stars you're looking for, but if you head down this way, you will see just the 2 bright stars of Castor and Pollux in Gemini. Castor is well worth a look because it's a close double star. You need a fairly good magnification to actually split the 2 stars. And that's it. Hopefully you'll be able to use our guide